All right, hello. Have you ever wondered what are all of the immigration options out there? If so, I welcome to this video and thank you so much for being here. My name's Otis Landerholm, and I want to share an overview of the complete set of immigration options. There's a lot of confusion out there, so let me try my best to clarify what the options are. And as we go through this, I'll hold up my version. This is now an old version of the Immigration Nationality Act. And each of these options are laid out by Congress in the Immigration Nationality Act. They are not invented, all right? Some of them perhaps are in cases, but let me do my best and go one step at a time through the different options that exist, all right? So first of all, the options break down into different categories. And so first I'll share what visas are available. Then we'll talk about green cards, then asylum, then U.S. citizenship, then removal defense, and then there's this category that I call other random things. And these lay out all of the immigration options that exist under the law. Okay? So let me start with visas, all right? Like, what is a visa? Who knows? Do you know what a visa is? Basically, a visa is a travel document. I'm not talking about credit cards, all right? I'm talking about a travel document. This is a stamp that goes in your passport, or these days it looks like a sticker, right? A full-page sticker that goes in your passport that gives a person the right to enter a new country, or in this case, enter the United States for a specific period of time for a specific lawful purpose. All right? So how do I get one? Which visa is right for me? These are questions to bring to an immigration lawyer. Here are the visas. All right? You've got A visas for ambassadors and diplomats. B visas are your standard tourist visa, visitors for business or for pleasure. E visas for traders and investors. F visas for students. And on down the alphabet. Almost every letter in the alphabet has a visa. All right? And some of the letters that you don't see on this list used to have visas, and those visas later were repealed. All right? I won't get into that. But so these are the visas. The trick with visas and the frustration for a lot of my clients with visas is that in order to get them, you've got to be outside the U.S. And so, of course, the undocumented community who's in the U.S. often should not apply for and should not and is not eligible for many visas. Why? Because if you leave the U.S. and if you have a certain amount of time of unlawful presence, you will trigger a bar, you will trigger an inadmissibility, which will then make you ineligible for the visa that you're requesting. And so you want to be cautious. But if you think that you don't have unlawful presence, or if you think that you would be eligible for a visa, then talk it through with your lawyer, okay? And there are some visas that can be received and can be applied for in the U.S., and there are even some visas that you can apply for even if you have quote-unquote unlawful presence, all right? Those are especially S visas, T visas, and U visas, as well as VAWA. Now, VAWA isn't technically a visa. We'll talk about it in the green card section. But nevertheless, I have it here. It goes hand in hand to some degree with U visas, all right, because people who are applying for VAWA have been victims of crimes, specifically domestic violence. All right, so my office, the visas that we do most commonly are K visas for fiancés. So U.S. citizens can petition for fiancés if they can show they have the intent to marry, they're legally eligible to marry, and they've met each other physically at some point in the past 2 years, with some exceptions. When a person gets a fiancé visa, they enter the U.S., they've got to get married within 90 days of their admission into the U.S., and then they file for their green card. Okay? My office also does a lot of U visas. U visas are for people who have been the victims of qualifying crimes here in the U.S. They've got to show they've cooperated with law enforcement in the investigation or the prosecution of that crime, and they've got to show they've suffered a severe amount of mental or physical abuse as a result of that crime. They also have to be admissible or eligible for a waiver, all right, along with the U visa. So Those are visas. If you have questions as to which visa might be best for you, talk it through with a lawyer, all right? The second big category are green cards. And I'd love to just put this quickly into perspective. In my office, we get calls fairly regularly about people looking to apply for visas. Maybe one call a day, maybe 10 calls a week, something like that, all right? Versus green cards, every day we get probably 20 people calling our office asking, how can I get a green card? Visas are good, but green cards are 1,000 times better, all right? Visas are for a specific duration of time for a specific purpose. One of those lawful purposes that I mentioned on the previous slide. Green cards are permanent, and they are for any lawful purpose, all right? So green cards really are 1,000 times better than visas, and I just wanted to explain that. So that's what green cards are. How do you get one? That's really the question. And so what I want to go through are the ways of getting green cards right here, right now, all right? The first and most common is through what are called family-based petitions. Like if you're married to a U.S. citizen, if you have a U.S. citizen child who you are the parent of a U.S. citizen child who has turned 21, and as long as you entered the country with inspection, you could apply for adjustment of status. And if you haven't entered the country ever, then they could petition for you, all right? Children can petition for parents. Parents can petition for children. Siblings can petition for their brother and sister, all right? And these petitions sometimes can include, you can receive benefits from petitions that were filed years and years ago under an old law called 245I, or if you have been inspected and admitted, you can benefit from them by adjusting status here in the U.S. All right. The second type of green card option is something that my office does not do. All right. And these are employment-based petitions. For people that have H-1B visas, for people that have lawful working visas through their employment, sometimes your employer can file a petition for your green card. Okay? There are even self-petitions through employment-based categories. Okay? The third type of option are investment-based green cards. We call it the EB-5 program, or even the Trump administration's new gold card program. These are investment-based green cards. If you have $1 million to invest, just cash, and you can employ 10 U.S. workers for 2 years, right? Then you can qualify for a green card through the EB-5 program. And there are exceptions depending on where you're applying, all right, where you can even have a reduced amount. And you can speak with immigration lawyers that do that type of program, which that's not what my office does, but they are options, and I want to include them as options, all right? Here I'm mentioning VAWA. I said I would mention VAWA. VAWA is a family-based petition that a person can do by themselves, all right? It's a self-petition. So when a person was ever abused by a U.S. citizen spouse or a U.S. citizen child in certain instances, or if a person was widowed or is the widower of a U.S. citizen, so like if your spouse passed away before they could file your petition, you can do that, all right, through VAWA. 5 is through asylum. So the way, and I'll talk about asylum in just a moment, but if you win an asylum case and then you wait a year, you can apply for a green card. You can actually apply for the green card early, and you can, but you can get it approved after you have asylum for a year. And then the number 6 is if you win a U visa. I should add a T visa here also. If you win a U visa or a T visa, you can use those visas to apply for a green card. It's one of the reasons why I love filing for U visas. And lastly, there's something called the Diversity Green Card Lottery, which gives more chances to win a green card for people from countries where there are fewer immigrants in the U.S., all right? So, if you're from a country that doesn't have a lot of immigrants in the U.S., you might qualify for the diversity green card lottery. That also is a service that my office does not do. But if you are from a country that has very few immigrants in the U.S., you might talk to a lawyer about your possibilities or your chances of winning a diversity green card lottery. Okay? Those are the green cards. The third category I want to talk about is asylum. All right? So asylum, to win asylum is not easy. All right? And it's becoming increasingly complicated, increasingly more and more difficult. To win asylum, basically asylum means protection. And when we talk about asylum, I'm often talking about three laws. They are asylum, withholding of removal, and relief under the Convention Against Torture. All right? But to win asylum, I'll just talk about asylum for right now, you have to show you have a well-founded fear of persecution on account of one of five things. It's got to be on account of your race, your religion, your nationality, your political opinion, or your quote-unquote membership in a particular social group. Okay? And so what's the problem with that, right? Imagine in your home country, imagine you're from a place where there's like narco-trafficking gangs all through your hometown. And imagine they're targeting all kinds of people in your hometown. Imagine they're targeting everybody in your hometown. And imagine you come to the U.S. and you argue asylum. You say, hey, my life is in danger because this is where I'm from. The judge is going to see your case and they're going to say, yeah, but why? Why are they going to persecute you? Is it really on account of your race? No. Is it really on account of your religion? No. Is it on account of your nationality or your political opinion or your membership in some particular social group? I mean, maybe, right? But many times it's not. Well, why is it? Well, they're just targeting everybody. Okay, the judge will hear that and say, denied. All right, that's why asylum is so difficult. And I'm not saying you shouldn't try an asylum case like that. If you've been harmed, if you've been persecuted, if you've been subject to serious violence in your home country, then talk to a lawyer and think about. But we've got to get really in depth about what those reasons, what the motivation of the bad guys were. Why would they target you? Okay? And there are various bars to asylum. You've got to file within 1 year of your most recent entry. There's bars that were passed fairly recently, the Circumventing Legal Pathways bar and Securing the Borders bar. There are other bars. I won't go through all of them right here, right now. But if you are afraid for your life to return to your country, talk it through with a lawyer. Feel free to give us a call. We could help if that makes sense for you. All right? The fourth category I want to discuss is U.S. citizenship. All right? So what is U.S. citizenship? Really what I want to talk about is who can apply for naturalization. Of course, there's some people who are U.S. citizens by birth, right? And that's great. And all the birthright citizenship issue, it's not what I'm talking about here today. Like if you already are a citizen by birth, then great. But one of the things that my office loves doing after we've won green cards, after we've gone through the whole process, is we love helping our clients become U.S. citizens through the process of naturalization. So who is eligible to do that? All right? Basically, there's these requirements. You must have had a valid green card for 5 years with an asterisk, all right, because it's 3 years if you're living in marital union with a U.S. citizen, all right? You must take and pass a citizenship test, which just as we speak is getting a little bit more difficult right now. You have to show that you're a person of quote-unquote good moral character for the last 5 years or the last 3 years. If you must speak basic English. There are some exceptions to that requirement as well. All right, if you're over 55 and you've had 15 years with a green card, or if you're over 50 and you've had 20 years with your green card, you can avoid the English language requirement. You have to be willing to swear loyalty to the United States, and you have to have certain amounts of physical presence in the United States. Typically, at least half of your 5 or 3 year period must have been physically present in the United States, and the best case scenario is you don't have any exits more than 180 days. Okay? That's how to win citizenship. That's a big option for certain people. But again, you got to win a green card first. Okay. Number 5, type of law is removal defense, all right? So removal defense is where, like, imagine we're in immigration court, and imagine ICE has given you a notice to appear, and it's like, we want to fight against it. And we want to say, no, judge, don't deport my client. Why? You know, some of the things that we can argue are all of the things we've already looked at, right? In other words, don't deport my client, judge, because he's got a visa, and here it is, and here's my motion to terminate. Or don't deport my client, Your Honor, he's eligible for a green card, and here's the application, right? Don't deport my client, Your Honor, his life is in danger in his country, and we're filing for asylum, or withholding of removal, or relief under the Convention Against Torture, right? The things we've already talked about, they can be used in immigration court sometimes. Not always, but sometimes, okay? In addition to the things that we've talked about, I want to share a few extras. One is what's called cancellation of removal. This is a series of laws that have been passed by Congress, all right? And they allow for a judge to cancel somebody's removal even though they're quote-unquote deportable under the law. And so this includes E42A, cancellation for lawful permanent residence. It includes E42B, which is cancellation of removal for non-permanent residents. So anyone who's undocumented, as long as you meet the requirements, 10 years of physical presence in the U.S., good moral character, someone in your family who's a U.S. citizen or a green card holder who would suffer exceptional and extremely unusual hardship if you were deported. All of that is E42B cancellation. VAWA cancellation of removal, NACARA cancellation of removal, suspension of deportation, 212C. There's lots of different options in immigration court. There are some waivers available. 237A1H can waive certain types of immigration fraud. 212H waivers can waive certain crimes. There's motions to reopen, motions to terminate and suppress. There's also something called prosecutorial discretion. All of these are options for folks if and when they're ever in immigration proceedings. Sometimes. They are not easy. They are not automatic. Okay? Anybody that's in immigration court should really work with an immigration attorney who knows what they're doing. All right. And my last slide here, there are other random things. Okay? DACA. There's going to be news about DACA here this month. Okay? I'm recording this in October 2025. We help some clients who are going through those processes apply for work authorization. You can't just apply for work authorization. You have to have one of these other things in play in order to qualify for work authorization. All right, there are military options that are not any of the other categories. All right, there's military parole in place. There's military deferred action that can be done if you have a spouse, sometimes a parent or a child who is a member of the U.S. Armed Forces or who has been. Okay? TPS, temporary protected status. You may have seen something about TPS in the news. In certain instances, depending on which country you are from, you might be eligible for TPS. All right? FOIA requests. So FOIA requests are not an actual immigration option. They are a tool that lawyers can use to determine what options might be available for you. Right? Basically, we do all your background checks, and we figure out what options there might be. Number 6 here is other parole, maybe humanitarian parole, right? Number 7 is other types of deferred action. All right, number 8 are bond hearings. If somebody's detained, immigration lawyers will help people get released from detention if they're eligible. This is more difficult now than ever. All right, but you got to be eligible for bond. You got to show you're not a danger to the community and that you're not a flight risk. All right, and then I put this on here because immigration lawyers do it. It's not an application for immigration benefits, but it is something that involves immigration. We sometimes help employers comply with I-9 requirements, right? Somebody starts a new job, they've got to comply with I-9 or E-Verify, things of that nature. Those are things that my office does not do, but immigration lawyers do that. Okay? So that, in a nutshell, is the full spectrum of immigration options. And now for you to figure out which option is the best for you, which option is the best in your case, I mean, that's where it really makes sense to do a consultation, talk it through with a lawyer, see what option works best for you, or if there's multiple options that you could try, go for them, right? And then submit that case, get it on file, and up-level your life through your immigration process, all right? Thank you so much for watching this. I hope this was useful. I hope this was helpful. If my office can help you in any way with any of these options, feel free to reach out. Really appreciate it. My name's Otis Landerholm, Landerholm Immigration, A.P.C, where we fight for your American dream. Best of luck. Take care. Bye-bye.